There is no frigate like a book. To take us lands away, nor any coursers like a page of prancing poetry. This traverse may the poorest take, without a press of toll. How frugal is the chariot, that bears the human soul. Live in it. I'm Martha Senator. This is Listen and Be Heard, and it's National Poetry Month.
In Zia Summer, I have this very strong character that came to me, Sonny Baca, who's the main character, the private investigator in the novel.
What about service on the boats to the city? Militarized buffer zones? Now that would be bad.
Your name is Elena? Okay. Can you point out which picture is yours?
This one's mine.
This one said that we all needed to become Johnny Appleseeds. So Zach, how do we do that?
I jumped into it and enjoyed, first of all, this kind of genre. Although I hesitate to say that it's strictly a murder mystery, I find that I can still write a lot about the things that interest me that have to do with culture and New Mexico and history and the people that live here and the different groups and how we get along or how we don't get along.
Limited is knowing that what you see, what you hear is... Today you'll hear an interview I did with Rudolfo Anaya in 1995 in Albuquerque, New Mexico, when his novel Zia Summer was just hitting the bookstores. I also pulled from the archives Listen and Be Heard Poetry Marathon that was held in Vallejo, California, in response to plans that were being made to have a liquefied natural gas plant right in the backyard of Vallejo. And we had a really long poetry event. A lot of people attended. And I pulled poetry from there by Q.R. Hand Jr., the late great poet of the Bay Area. And also, I will continue to read some of Emily Dickinson's poetry to you. And of course, we have some live TV in the community from Tony Robles, student art on display at the Blue Ridge Mall in Hendersonville, North Carolina. And he also spoke with Robert Zachary of the Healing Love Institute, who shared some poetry for Listen and Be Heard as well. I have some good news for the Listen and Be Heard podcast, which is that we will be soon broadcasting on Wednesday afternoons from WPVM in Asheville, North Carolina. More about that a little later in the podcast. Right now, we'll hear a little more of Emily Dickinson and then go to the interview with Rudolfo Anaya. How soft a caterpillar steps. I find one on my hand. From such a velvet world it comes, such plushes at command. Its soundless travels, just a rest, my slow, terrestrial eye intent upon its own career. What use has it for me?
You seem to be able to fit comfortably in the traditions and make them somehow agree with each other rather than to need to tear one or the other apart. And that, I think, you've continued in Zia Summer as well, this concern with the curandera and their powers as opposed to the ability of the church to save souls. So that I think I'm trying to ask a question here.
I'm waiting.
I guess I'm just expressing some of my feelings about your writing.
I understand.
And would like to get you to elaborate on that, maybe.
Well, I think the sense of synthesis that I seek when I look at my history and recognize that we have here in the New World in the Americas a European history, but we also have a Native American indigenous history, and we're products of that. And we want to take from both worlds, so that instead of pushing one aside or believing only in one, there's beautiful material that comes to us from both worlds, especially that material that is spiritual and speaks to the soul, which Zia Summer is all about. It's about Sunny Baka's soul. How is it affected by the death of Gloria? How does her spirit enter him, and what is the role of the curandera, or the healer, in terms of helping him understand who he is and how he can be affected by this woman's spirit. Mm-hmm. And that theme of healing, as you pointed out, is in all of my work. It starts with Bless Me Ultima way back in 1972 and continues throughout the novels.
I feel like in your books you also point the way a lot of times either towards these female characters who act in a nurturing way, or I forget the name of the woman by the river, La
Llorona. Huh?
Right, and those sort of things. Is that something that you think of in terms of feminine and masculine, or you tend to think of it just as part of a larger culture?
Well, I probably respond to the male and female sensibility that we all have and that we can all access in order to understand ourselves better. Mm-hmm. And it so happens that in Bless Me Ultima, the young boy, Antonio, has to have as a mentor a woman. The males in his life, his father and his brothers, can teach him about what it is like to be a male. It can teach him, initiate him into that kind of world. But it's also important, if he's going to be a sensitive person that really understands himself and other people, that he get another message, and that comes from Ultima, who is a healer, who is a woman. And so he begins to be in touch and to understand that world. And again, instead of having them tear him apart, he brings them together. 20 years later or more now, Sunny Baka in Zia Summer is almost the same kind of person as Antonio was in Bless Me Ultima. He's a young guy, he's 30, he loves to have a good time, he loves to dance on Saturday nights, and he's got a very wonderful lady friend. And so on one level, he's a young man just having fun. On the other level is his need to know more about his spirit, and that will come from Rita, the lady friend that he has, and from Lorenza, the curandera, that will begin to be very important in his mentorship.
Is that coming up in the next book?
Her role will be stronger in the following novels. I plan to develop Sunny Baka as a person really in search of the meaning of life. What is he doing here, and how does he bring together the worlds that he's heir to, that European world and that indigenous world, and what kind of spiritual guideposts are there? What can he learn spiritually about himself? And a lot of that has to do with Don Eliseo, who's mentioned in Zia Summer, who's the old man who is also very wise and can teach him a lot. And the other part comes from the woman healer. I think one of the things we see going on in New Mexico, and in this country, perhaps in the world, is that what we call the old traditional cultures that were land-based and had a deep sense of legend and story and mythology and spiritual thought and ceremonies and dances are in the midst of change. They're being displaced, they're being pushed out. We talk a lot about the process of assimilation, how young people from one culture rush to seek another one, and how this country's pop culture, mainstream culture is so powerful that it draws these young people, and then they tend to forget their traditional ways. They forget their language, they forget their ceremonies, they forget a sense of respect for their elders and for the earth. And I think in a way, Sonny Baca in Zia Summer is that kind of young man. He's gotten educated, he's got a degree, he tried to be a teacher and didn't like it much, and then went off to be a private investigator. But along the way, he's lost touch with his roots. And to me, those roots are really spiritual, because what the traditional cultures teaches is a lot about our relationship to each other and our relationship to the universe. And when that is out of kilter, when that is out of harmony, we get sick. And I think we see that sickness in our society. We see extreme violence in the home, in the streets, in government, in the military, everywhere we turn. And so it's a question of trying to find one's roots that can center the person and make that person more aware of identity, so that that person can act in a positive way in the society.
Now, when you pick something like the Zia sun symbol, in a lot of ways, I think that embodied what you're talking about, both in the sense of what it represents in its original meaning, and then also how it's been co-opted and used in so many different ways. It's almost like a symbol of everything that's happened to the young people, and how something can be changed and used differently, and maybe people even forget what it even meant originally. It's on the state flag, and I think, like you said in the book, it's on all sorts of company logos and all sorts of different things, and perhaps people see it but don't stop and give thought to what the symbol actually
Well, I think
means.
You've touched on one of the very important themes of the novel, and that is that the sun symbol is a sacred symbol. And as we forget that sense of the sacred and are drawn more into the world of the material, we lose touch with a very important aspect of ourselves, who we are as spiritually aware people, persons. And we have a past history that is full of beautiful myths and stories that talk about that spirituality, about that essence, and yet so much of it has been profaned. And so the book, there is a battle between good and evil, which also appeared in Bless Me Ultima. What is it that happens to the sacred in life when it is profaned by the material, when it is covered over, when it is forgotten? Are we forgetting how to be decent human beings, with a spirit within that we can share with each other, and being swept more into this world of violence? And so I think my novels are a very contemporary response to this question that we all live with. I live with it. And
Right.
everyone I know lives with it. It's a conflict and it's a struggle. And so as a writer, I put that struggle into the characters in Zia Summer. I give it to Sonny Baca, and he has to deal with it.
It's the struggle.
Right. As Don Liceo says in the novel, well, we used to know who the witches in the neighborhood were because it was very common. We all lived together. And we knew who the healers were. And he says, now it's changed. Now they drive BMWs into work every day. And so the guise has changed. And I think if you continue reading the Sonny Baca versus Raven stories, you will begin to understand how Raven is for the destruction of the universe. That's his agenda. He represents that which wants to bring chaos. And it's not a chaos out of which can be born something new and positive, but just violent chaos. I have really decided that my contribution is through writing. I have a kind of limited time and energy, and I'm aware of social problems and social issues, and I speak to them. But all of it comes out in story form, let us say, essays that I write. As a writer, I think that's my contribution.
Powers with the pen.
Right.
To ask you one sort of thing in general about the literary, I don't want to say scene in the Southwest, but I think you're obviously, a well-known writer of the region established here. Who else would you say is part of the Southwestern literary, I don't know if it's a renaissance, but I think that there's a definite tradition at this point from this area. And who are some of the other people you might put into?
Well, there are so many, and I think you're right. We have going on in the Southwest region a renaissance from California to Texas, from Colorado down into Chihuahua. There's hundreds of writers. Frank Waters from Taos, who just passed away June the 3rd. I think everyone should read. John Nichols, Tony Hellerman, Denise Chavez, Ana Castillo, Sandra Cisneros. Sandra now lives in Texas. Alberto Rios, E.A. Mares, Jimmy Baca, Barbara Kingsolver. I could go on and on.
Okay.
There's just too many to gather them all in one short answer.
Okay. Well, I'd like to thank you very much for your time. My name is Martha Senator, and I've been speaking to Rudolfo Anaya in his home in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
That was some excerpts from an interview with Rudolfo Anaya from 1995, when my daughter Crystal and I were traveling across the country on a train from New York to Chicago to Albuquerque, and then some incredibly long train from there to Santa Fe even. But that's a whole other story. But I did record a lot of that on DAT tape, a bit of our journey and some of the interviews that I conducted along the way. And Rudolfo Anaya was an incredibly gracious host who certainly probably had better things to do than talk to me. But he was... he treated me with dignity and respect, and it was a memorable experience for me at the time. We're going to go on now to hear a little bit more from Emily Dickinson, and then from the exhibit of art students in Hendersonville, North Carolina, which Tony Robles attended yesterday and did some reporting from there. She sights a bird. She chuckles. She flattens. Then she crawls. She runs without the look of feet. Her eyes increase to balls. Her jaws stir, twitching, hungry. Her teeth can hardly stand. She leaps, but Robin leaped the first. Ah, pussy of the sand. The hopes so juicy ripening, you almost bathed your tongue, when bliss disclosed 100 toes and fled with every one. The pedigree of honey does not concern the bee. A clover any time to him is aristocracy.
This is Listen and Be Heard. This is a art show, a student art show here at the Blue Ridge Mall in Hendersonville. This is Rebecca Miller from the Hillendale Elementary School. She's an art teacher, and as you can see here, there's lots of art. Rebecca, if you could just tell us a little bit about some of these pieces here. We'll just kind of maybe go to your right here.
Yeah. So we have from K through 5th grade, so kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, all represented, and I have 14 students in the show. These are particularly 2nd grade over here. We have some 5th grade. We go from printmaking to painting. We used Q-tips for these over here.
For the cherry blossoms.
For the cherry blossoms, yes.
Q-tips. And I noticed you guys have kind of like popsicle sticks here.
Yeah, for the scroll.
Yeah, for the scroll.
And we learned about lots of different types of different countries, types of art. Talk about techniques and styles, and we have 5th grade up here a little bit.
This is all elementary. Yeah. This is really outstanding.
Oh, thank you.
This is really something.
We have a 2nd place winner, which was exciting.
Yeah, and this is the turtle, the sea turtle. Yeah.
And we have clubs at our school too. So sometimes we do stuff more just for fun, and then sometimes we focus more on different countries and techniques and things like that.
I know that, there's been cutbacks across the country in art. Could you just tell us why art should kind of be at the forefront, or at least be a part of elementary schools, and not just elementary schools, but schools in general?
Yeah, I do think it starts in elementary, the love for art and the techniques and expressing yourself, not through just words and through speaking, but on a piece of paper, because we know all kids learn at different levels, and especially with emotions lately in the world, it seems to be a lot of ups and downs, and it's great to use that through art. So I think it should be promoted much more across not only the North Carolina, but the U.S. too.
So. Well, also it expands the imagination, and you explore possibilities. And it can kind of it ends up in beautiful creative work such as this.
Yeah.
And anyway, we really appreciate your work, and this was really fantastic. Hi, welcome to Listen and Be Heard. We're speaking with Eric Kirshner of the Arts Council of Henderson County. I got it right.
You did.
Student art is on the agenda for this evening, elementary through high school. Tell us about the event, and tell us how long these pieces are going to be here.
Well, this is a great partnership with the Blue Ridge Mall here in Hendersonville. And so these pieces will now be up for 2 weeks. They'll be seen by thousands and thousands of people. And I'm really glad that they're going to get that kind of exposure.
Yes.
So this is the student mentor art exhibit. It happens annually. The Arts Council puts it on every year, this time of the year in the spring. But actually, with the success of this here tonight at the mall, the first time we partnered with the mall, we're going to be doing now 2 of these, and we'll be back in December.
I think you had the last one at Blue Ridge Community College.
That's correct.
I went to the one last year. That was fantastic. What's really something is you have kind of a diverse offering of art, and just looking, for instance, at the elementary entries, outstanding. You think to yourself, wow, elementary?
Yeah. I think all of the different stages show kind of the growth of the kids as they go from trying something out and trying to figure out how to draw a figure to understanding perspective to then telling a story. Several of the high school pieces are very personal and deal with actual language that the kids are writing in the pieces themselves.
Yeah, you know what? I did.
This is a great example.
Yeah, I did see that. Yeah.
So this is almost an autobiographical piece by this artist, where she's putting in different words and things like that to try and sculpt out the face. And I think it's really emblematic of millennials and Gen Zers because social media is such an important part of their lives, and they're documenting everything. That this is very interesting to me. That several of the pieces have these kinds of almost blog-like or post-like elements that are embedded within the artwork.
Like that's interesting. That's an interesting point. Social media, documenting in real time.
Yeah. Well, and also when we're using social media, for better or for worse, we're curating our own lives.
Yes.
And so I really think that the kids today, they're so much more sharp on that. They know how to edit things. They know how to shade. They know how to, edit video as well as edit Photoshop to a still image.
Yes.
So we have one digital creation that's here in the show, which is really stunning to look at. So I think it's, when you see the talent of the kids, it is reflective of the technology and the world that they're living in. I did a theater thing with all the theater kids from Henderson County earlier, and they had done improvisational skits, and without even knowing it, and I had to actually bring it up to them later, they had already embedded COVID into their improvisational things.
Those were excerpts from interviews that Tony Robles conducted for student art that was on display. And you can watch those two complete videos as well as see some of the wonderful artwork that the students did. On the website at listenandbeheard.net, the article is called Student Art on Display, and that will also be on display through April 28th at the Blue Ridge Mall in Hendersonville, North Carolina. And that was sponsored by the Arts Council of Henderson County. We'll hear more from Tony a little later in the podcast when he speaks with Robert Zachary of the Healing Love Institute. We're going to be heard in Asheville. We're going to listen and be heard in Asheville at WPVM Radio, which is at 103.7 on your FM dial in the Asheville area. And of course, worldwide, it streams live as well from the WPVMFM.org website. And Listen and Be Heard will be heard on Wednesday afternoons at 4 o'clock. So our audience is growing, our concept is growing, and the idea of a network formed around listening and being heard in a non-commercial setting is taking some root, and I feel good about that. Back in the day, in the Bay Area, Listen and Be Heard was a weekly newspaper. It was also a poetry cafe. And we got involved with stuff, including hosting some poetry marathons. And we had an anti-LNG marathon. And QR Hand Jr. always showed up for any poetry event that we ever did almost. He lived right there in Vallejo, and he was so happy when Listen to Be Heard started started up and was one of our biggest supporters. And so I bring to you now Q. Arhan Jr.
So what I've seen is what I'm going to call devolution. We used to dance. We used to dance to the drums, to the drums, to the drumming, pulsating knowledge, stroke and stomp steps of flowing science, smoking howls of rhythm, imagining wires of delicate proportion. We used to dance to learn. We used to dance and learn to the drumming and the hum that wove the selves and stars into bright black eyes visions. Stomp and stroke pulsating language, all around flow of rhythm and balance, song of smoking howls ablaze, of imagination's rigorous ways. Then, this great cosmic joke, us not nimble enough to evade this snare of inhuman yoke. Hot chains of identity, long drinks of serial symbols washed down with lies we learn to earn, then yearn for. Constructing identities, new local visions, transcendent process of militant and mind trap, we wove ourselves in and out of these mysteries, landlords, history books of such textual intricacy ordered by the dean of the day erudition, we missed the dance and never noticed. While we learned to inscribe footnotes with fragments of bone, integrate identities that switch hats with dramatic celerity, sign checks with a third hand. We huffed and we puffed, and we gladly became the house. Who is this act of torture for? Why is the whip in the hand of the priest and the diplomat? The stop sign thief runs amucking just down the block. Why did the officers always get here late? Where one time even 4 little girls, well, what did you say? In a church? In Birmingham? Another fact, too trite for the time of the numbed gardenia and rancid seas. 3 feet away, some chiseler liberates lifeboats to fill prescriptions for Grosse Pointe teas. Miami Beach Cubanos offer to enslave when the price is right. If sugar sucks greenbacks behind the curtain, see what is happening, Dick. Here, Jane, now. What is happening here? See, spot, run, now. What shall we do with our new definitions here, staring at the traces of quicklime on the edges of the trenches and ditches on the lawn of this trustee and that turncoat who might approach at any moment? And the apple cart is stepping over. How do these wares fit us? Where do anybody sit in this house overlooking these plains of desiccations, broken pipes of dream on, dappled desire that never got there? How do we move over in here? Well, moonbeams cower in groups of 10 at noon. The guard feeds us a spoon of melting ice that always splashes out tuxedos. What happened to the dance, Jack? What happened to the dance?
I heard a fly buzz when I died. The stillness in the room was like the stillness in the air between the heaves of storm. The eyes around had wrung them dry, and breaths were gathering firm for that last onset when the king be witnessed in the room. I willed my keepsakes, signed away what portion of me be assignable. And then it was there interposed a fly, with blue, uncertain, stumbling buzz between the light and me, And then the windows failed, and then I could not see to see. Could I but ride indefinite, as doth the meadow bee, and visit only where I liked, and no one visit me, and flirt all day with buttercups, and marry whom I may, and dwell a little everywhere, or better, run away, with no police to follow, or chase him if he do, till he should jump peninsulas to get away from me. I said, but just to be a bee upon a raft of air, and row in nowhere all day long, and anchor off the bar. What liberty so captivates, deem who tight in dungeons are.
Today's guest is Robert Zachary. He's better known as Zach. He's a mentor. He's also a historian, a poet, a storyteller, an independent chaplain, an activist, and a healer. He combines life, music, poetry, history, and storytelling with a holistic perspective on winning freedom, justice, and peace. Zach, welcome to our podcast.
One day, it was just by chance, I would see the black custodians, and I would see the black workers who worked in the cafeteria, and they were like my mom and my daddy, my uncles and aunts, and but I noticed they at lunchtime we go into the cafeteria. You would never see them there. And I would see these black men and black women in little mop holes, little rooms that hold the marks and the sinks. And that's where they ate their lunch. They couldn't even buy food in the cafeteria to take there. And I took it to the Black Student Union. And then I made my way to the Socialist Workers' Party. That was one, and the Progressive Labor Party. And I got them going. And then the first semester I was at Georgia State, I was in a class with the president of the SGA, and he was a white guy. And I went to him, and I explained it to him, and he said, come on. And all of the sororities and the fraternities were in the student union at that time because Georgia State didn't have dormitories and all like that. And he took me up on the second floor and took me to every fraternity on the floor. And I explained myself and told them when the boycott was going to be. And then he took me up on the third floor. And you had to make yourself, if you were a male, you had to announce, you know, that there are males coming. And we went in every sorority and explained it and all. And then we went to the dean and told him, we're going to boycott next week. And he said, well, you'll never be successful. And started throwing papers across his desk at me. And I had to throw them back at him. Anyway, Monday came and the cafeteria opened up, and even the professors, many of them, did not eat in the cafeteria. We had the support of all the sororities and the fraternities.
Wow.
It was grand. And so he told me, you'll be working on this for 3 weeks. And on the third day, he sends word for that Zachary to come to his office, and he said, okay, you win. We're going to give you your rights.
Wow. I wanted to bring up a quote by the filmmaker Jonas Mekas. He said that in the very end, civilizations perish because they listen to their politicians and not to their poets. And that being said, I was wondering if you had a poem that you would like to share.
Old men, necks bend, of broken bones and backs, they walk along in slick city streets, along ghetto dwellings, marching, preaching from slender pulpits. Others pronounce and show off, fashion themselves in wigs, wheels, rags, untied round heads, singing boogaloo songs, jukebox boxes, beat tunes of death marches they write for some distant eyes. We swing, breathe hard, we scatter our money along city's 6 streets. Old men next bend from broken bones and backs. They walk along in slick streets, the shovel and pits. Got them down, down, so long, digging wide ditches, tunnels to their graves. We love, we create, we get down, we procreate, and bring love children into this mean world through holy wombs who have sown life's essence before life, coming and becoming a part of a new generation, flowing always into our distant future. We make them laugh, hear them cry, prepare their minds for the danger traps, and teach them a dance no other people on the face of the earth can dance to.
Actually, I always like the sound of
And that is some serious eldership, scholarship, wisdom, and medicine. Zach, thank you so much for blessing us and sharing your scholarship and your wisdom. The Healing Love Institute that Zach founded, you can find that online. What's the website? Is it healingloveinstitute.com?
.com, yes.
Tony Robles spoke with Robert Zachary of the Healing Love Institute for about an hour. So that was an excerpt, but you can watch the whole Zoom video conversation between Tony and Zach at the Listen and Be Heard website. Just go to listenandbeheard.net, click on videos or author interviews. Look for the student art on display as well that you heard earlier in the podcast. And read some poetry, enjoy some poetry, reflect on how it makes you feel or the things that you think that you can't really talk about in everyday conversation, and yet it's language too, language that we need to engage in. So there's a thought. There's my thought. Thank you for listening. As I told you, I'm excited to be part of the new family. Not the new family. I'm the new member of the family at WPVM FM in Asheville, North Carolina. At least that's the way Davine Dial has made me feel. And I'm happy to be able to announce that you will soon be able to hear Listen and Be Heard on Wednesdays at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And you will still continue to be able to hear us on Spotify and Apple Podcast and Podcast Addict or wherever it is. If you can't find us where you do like to listen to a podcast, let me know and I'll see if I can get it listed there or ask them to do it yourself. But whatever you do, please come and visit us and send me a recording at editor at Listen and Be Heard. Submit something at the website. Leave a comment. Let me know that you hear me. I'm speaking into that,
Thinking the unthinkable.
Atmospheric
Doing the unexpected.
Ether of the universe, and
Quitting
somehow
before you
we're
get fired.
connecting because you're hearing my voice right now, and I would like to hear your voice too. So thank you for listening. Consider being heard, and next week will be episode 10. I look forward to speaking a little more with you then. Thank you for listening.
Living it is. Loving a man you're not supposed to love. Giving way to emotions. Creating commotions. Calling attention to yourself. And eye contact. Living it is learning from someone who can actually show you. Cleaning your teacher's house or helping her to find one. Never, ever, ever saying J-O-B. Living it is a one-way ticket. No solid plans. Smoking a J in a smoke cafe in Amsterdam. Saying the day is